Hi everyone, it's Barbara Hayward here from the Old Girls Spiritual Stuff Facebook page and YouTube channel, and welcome once again. I have said this before that I am really, really blessed, very blessed that I get to interview only the very best people, only the amazingly, incredibly best people. And today is no different. And I would like to introduce you to the globe, a lovely lady, an Australian lady, which, Australian ladies are pretty awesome, if I may say so myself. And her name is Suzi Dent. And she comes from Queensland, and what a story she has. And I've asked Suzi today to just go wherever she wants in her conversation. The juxtaposition of her life, the opposites and the good and the not so good, and everything that comes together, that has made her into one incredible speaker, let alone an amazingly authentic person coming from compassion and love and peace. And a little bit of the ocarism, may I say, thank goodness. I will say a little bit. As you all know, I am Australian, and I'm an Aries girl, and I love Australian women. I love our brashness, and I love our bolshiness and our boldness and our beautiful. And today, this is who Susie is, all in one package. But beyond that, it is her story, and it's her introduction into the spiritual world, coming from a journey that led before that. So, with utmost pleasure, Suzi, welcome, and thank you so much for being with us today. And I'm just going to give you the platform, go wherever you like. And your story is so inspiring. So welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Hi, everyone. What an awesome introduction. Thank you so much. Barb spoke to me a little while ago, and we were talking about all things spiritual. And I started telling her this story about what happened to me inside the walls of Stonehenge when I had a shamanic healing, and it changed my life. And I've never spoken about this before, and Barb was fascinated. So I'm going to tell you guys this story today. Now, for context, in Australia, I'm known as one of the women at the beginning of the MeToo movement. Back in 2014, which is, a little while ago now, I came forward in this massive court case that was in the UK for a major entertainer, somebody who was big, rich, friend of the royal family and untouchable. Now, I worked with this man. I'm a film and television hair and makeup artist, and I have been for 42 years. So I work with all sorts of people in the entertainment industry. When I was working with this man for this one day, he couldn't keep his hands off me. So he groped me all day in a studio in front of everyone. And I came forward in the court case that then happened. So this happened to me in 1986 when I was 23, right? So this is historical, back in the 80s, that I'm sure there's many women watching. Back in the 80s, men touched us whether we wanted it or not, right? You got groped, you got your bum touched, it just happened. It was part of our lives. It was something that we had to learn to live with. And, you grin and bear it was the saying, and boys will be boys, and please don't do that. And that was when men used to tell us to smile because you look so nice when we smiled. And women have learned to go, I'm not going to smile at you. So this man was brought to trial in the UK. Yeah. He's an Australian who pretty much made his career in the UK, very, very, very famous. So his name was Rolf Harris. So as part of this case, I came forward and told my story as a bad character witness, and I was chosen by the judge to be part of this case alongside only 8 other people and 7 women from around the world, 4 of whom were sexually assaulted by him when they were little girls. Yeah, I came forward, not for me for having a bad day with a dirty old man, but for the women who were little girls when they were groped. Yeah. And I put myself out there to be part of this case, which was one of the first cases of its kind, where victims, survivors of historical crimes were not only listened to, but heard, and action was taken. And there was a huge case that was run by Scotland Yard in the UK called Operation Yew Tree, which I've actually, funnily enough, there's been mention of it on like British cop dramas that I've watched over the years. They'll be sitting there and they've said Operation Yew Tree. Oh, I was part of that. Wow.
Part of that?
It's part of, what is it? I don't know. It's like dropped into the vernacular of, TV shows and dramas. So, I was part of that case. But leading up to it, so put yourself in a situation if you came forward and you talked about something that happened to you to support other women, to help other women come forward. Because he was a really big star and a friend of the Queen. Apparently, he was in the top 5 entertainers of all time in our generation.
Yeah.
So he was huge, right? So leading up to this case, it was very important. I had a lot of talks with. I came forward after seeing an interview with one of the women who was a little girl when she assaulted him on a current affairs show, and I knew that she wasn't lying. And at the time, the press were vilifying her, dragging her through the coals. This was back in 2013, the end of 2013, that this was happening. And she was completely not being supported by anyone, which was, astounding. And I sat there and I watched and I just thought, I know that you're not lying. I'd never kept it a secret for decades. People say to me, who's the best and the worst person that you've worked with? The best was whoever, that always changed as I worked with major celebrities around the world, and the worst was always him. And I would never work with him again. You could not pay me enough to put me he's dead now, but you couldn't have paid me enough to put me in a room with that man again. It was huge. It was massive. I took it very, very seriously leading up to the case. When I was chosen by the judge, I came forward and put out these emails, after I saw Current Affair, and one of them eventually, and I used words that no one knew. So as part of the word octopus came from me, and that went around the world. That was his nickname in the industry. So in the television industry, it was known that he molested makeup artists, but nobody had told me. Before I was working with, I wasn't given a heads up or anything like that. Again, women not supporting women and all that sort of stuff, back then. So leading up to the case, it was huge. Like, it was in all the papers what was happening, and lots of entertainers were being taken down by Operation Yew Tree. Lots of British entertainers of that the older generation,
that era,
that era, the older era to me, like our family, our parents' era, our father's era. He was like 94 or something when he died, so he was way older. And a lot of, that generational mindset, and that particular generation have the mindset that, women are not equal and all that sort of stuff. So, as we all well know. So I was chosen by the judge. I'm on my journey. Months and months are going past, and I'm being contacted by the police. And at the time, my father was also really sick, and he was in hospital. 3 months later, he was dead. So I was coping with all that, which was pretty full on. And then coming forward to it all was really good, but it's hard to explain, because I've never really talked about this. I was raised in a very religious family. My father was a Sunday school teacher. My mother was captain of the Girls' Brigade. I was brought up with the Bible and modest dressing and the 10 Commandments and all that. Went to a church, went to Sunday school, did all that until I didn't do all that. And as I grew older, I eventually said to my father, this is your journey, but it's not mine. I don't believe in these things. My parents actually got excommunicated from the Baptist church because we dared. Yeah, I know. Yeah, we dared to have they dared to have a Seventh-day Adventist minister in our home, where my parents conducted like teen kind of sessions, and he would just tell us about all the religious places around the world like Petra and stuff and show us slideshows. It's fabulous. It's like a religious history lesson. But these ministers were very unchristian, if you like.
Yes.
So it was like their way or the highway. And I remember when I was younger, I said to my dad, I said, Daddy, that man doesn't smile with his eyes, meaning the minister. So I've had a lot of experiences with all different sorts of religions growing up because my dad was on a hunt for the religion that would suit him the best. So, you know, I was christened in a Church of England church when I was a baby. I was baptized as a teenager. I was one of those people that would knock on your door and say, have you found God yet, as a teenager? So, you know, I've done lots of things.
Yeah, lots of searching.
Well, I wasn't searching. I was just being dragged along, actually, with my journey and being indoctrinated into what I was supposed to do from the adults around me. You know, this is what you're supposed to do. So this is how you're going to live your life. But I like to find my own way in life, as we all do eventually. And I realised that I was much more a spiritual person than a religious person. And having been to several different religions as I was growing up, I realised that religion wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And that I was more an agnostic than anything. But as I grew older, spirituality is where it's at, and the connection between Mother Earth and us and the world around us. And so I started delving deeper, if you like, into what I believed as an adult. So I'm telling you that so you get to understand what I went through, you know. So I did the court case and all that sort of stuff, and I don't have to talk about any of that. We won as women in the courtroom. It felt like, you know, I had my 12-year-old girl inside me. I was sexually assaulted when I was 12. Changed my life. Yeah. These other adult women that were in the courtroom with me, well, not at the same time, but their little girls were there too. So it was like there's these, you know, so 7 very fierce little girls inside there, adult women going, no, we're speaking up now. We may not have spoken up then, but we're speaking up now. And together as a collective, we spoke up. Our little girl voices as adult women were heard. We were believed, we were heard, and we won. And he went to jail, and it changed the world as far as...
Can I just pop in here? When I first heard about it, I was completely devastated because he was the icon. He was, you know, Jake the three-legged...
Jake the peg,
the 3 legs. He was just this icon. And to have that bubble blown open, there was nowhere for us to go because we had to then slowly accept the reality and the truth. And similar, I was molested at 4, 5, and 6 and raped at 12. And when this started coming out as truth, not as a gossipy thing, which in the beginning we thought was, because how could this happen? He's virtuous. He's this saint.
He was an actor.
Absolutely.
And an entertainer. And it took a long time for society to catch up. Yes. People were devastated in the UK and here and New Zealand and Malta and South Africa. He had a very wide reach. Yes. And people with society were ashamed that they had let this man into their homes via their TVs and their radios to entertain them. And they found, and their perception. It blew everybody's minds, like you said. People were complete disbelief. We were all blamed. None of us were telling the truth. None of the victims were telling the truth. We were all liars because, you know, everybody knows they're all women, all lie. Well, none of us are sexually assaulted. It's all a big lie. We all asked for it because of what we were wearing, you know, the ridiculous stuff that we're changing in society now.
And that was the beginning. If please correct me here, but that was the beginning of allowing our older voices as children to be heard through this example of this court case.
You're absolutely right. It was the first time. Many, many, many women and men came forward for against these entertainers in the UK, and they spoke up. The court case I was a part of, dozens of women from around the world came forward. I'm very grateful that I was chosen to be a bad character witness in this case. You know, what was your day like with him? I had a bad day with a dirty old man. You know, he couldn't keep his hands off me. He kept shoving his hands up my shorts, you know, but in front of people, in front of the people, all the men. It wasn't done. It wasn't done quiet. It was very blatant, you know. And there was lots of men watching who did nothing. Again, 1986, and that star quality. That people thought, wow, it's Rolf Harris. It was just like he was on a different plane to the rest of us, because that's how we believed everything we saw on television.
Yeah. Well, it had to be real because it looked real.
That's right, you know, and we believed him. Oh, there's no way that he could. He's wonderful. He's lovely. People hadn't met him, but they were convinced because of his television character that he was above reproach. He worked with children.
We thought that was really him.
Yeah, that's right. But no, it wasn't. He unfortunately was. He took advantage of any woman he could. Actually, I've had over the years, I've had many makeup artists come forward, even one to talk to me. Even one lady, when I was in the UK 2 years ago to launch my book, and he died, and I was inundated with press, and I was on Good Morning Britain, which is a major show over there, like their biggest day morning show. And one of the makeup artists in the makeup room, as I do my own hair and makeup, obviously, but I always go, you know, I'm very comfortable in a studio. I popped into the makeup room and said hi and told them who I was. And one of the women sat there. She was an older woman, and she told me for the very first time that he had sexually assaulted her. And it was amazing. So, and I got to have this story before I actually went on air, which was great. So I'm like full of, wow, I've just had this woman literally come out to me. She never told anybody, and here I am. I'm just walking in the studio full of the effect that speaking up has had on many, many women and men who the power of this is when bad things happen to you, to all of us, if we don't actually tell someone about it and we keep it to ourselves, as soon as we start telling someone, a trusted friend, doesn't have to be in front of millions of people like I've done it, it's the beginning of a healing journey. You know, we bring it out and we look at it, and the people are like, wow, that happened to you. And it's like, yeah. Or what I have found is over the years, I have a lot of solidarity with people because they recognize themselves in my story. And I'm very grateful and humble to have, because I was part of this case and because I've actually spoken a lot around the world about this, I've given people the power to tell their story. Like, well, if she can do it, I can do it. I'm like, yeah. How good is that? You know, you don't think about, I had no idea the impact me coming forward in this court case would have. I didn't even think we were going to win, to be quite honest, but we did. When I was over there, I was called the strongest bad character witness by the press. I was the flavour of the month with the things that I said. They can quote you and not quote you. So we all were given lifetime anonymity by the judge and the British court system. I chose to waive my anonymity in 2019. That's 5 years after I went to court. And I wasn't ready to talk about it and come out. I needed to go through stuff myself and healing, which has started with what happened to me in Stonehenge, which is why I'm here today to tell you. So there's a bit of the background.
What an amazing background situation. And when I say amazing, I'm not talking the best story ever. However, it's an essential story because it's true, it's real, it happened, and barriers started breaking down for other important cases to come forward. But out of the grey clouds, out of those terrible times. And as much as you're talking about your experience in such an amazingly articulate and beautiful, caring way, there was none of that in that story. And I'm sure everybody out there who has a mother, sister, niece, cousin that has been through an experience like that, there is no easy part of it. However, the next phase of this story, can we go there?
Yeah. So it was really odd when I was it's kind of lonely doing something like this. My husband at the time was suffering from depression, anxiety, and anger management problems. He gave me his full support, and I was flown over to the UK by the cops, the prosecution, I should say. Leading up to that, though, I kind of felt like I had my ancestors, the spirits of my ancestors with me. I had a very close relationship with my grandmother, and I swear she was there. She was very buffy. She was like 5 foot nothing, and she was feisty, a feisty redhead. And if she was alive, she would have come to the UK with me. Um, but I really did. I felt like I was gathering spirits. And I'd never felt like this before. I'd never had this experience before. I was very aware that I was about to do something very important, and I took it all very, very seriously. But it was like I was gathering an army of spirits behind me, and that I was the beginning of this triangle, and there was many of them that came. And and they were with me. And I know it was my ancestors, my female ancestors, other people, but mainly a lot of my blood. I'm a first generation Australian. So my ancestors come from Britain. So going over there was also very powerful. So I started to feel the weight of these spirits pushing me forward. I would never have quit what I was doing. For me, coming forward, having never kept it a secret, I would have been a complete hypocrite, and there's no way I could have done that. I'm pretty buffy, and I understand that these sorts of things take a certain fearlessness and a bravery, but they were with me.
Yeah.
My ancestors were with me. I felt them like I had never felt them before. Before I went to the UK, I wanted, because it's a long way, I got to have a girlfriend with me as a support person. They paid for her as well, and she's been in my life for decades. I was 51 at the time, so full on in menopause. My hips were killing me. My back was killing me. But there was no way I was quitting anything. And so I had her, and she was amazing. But before we left, I booked us. I always wanted to go to Stonehenge, and I felt really drawn to Stonehenge, and I booked us a visit inside the circle. So when you go there, you're a long way away from Stonehenge, and you have to, pay and book to get into Stonehenge at dawn. One of my cousins used to live in Glastonbury, which is a very spiritual place, and she's a very spiritual person. And there was this healer that she put me in touch with, this fabulous man who used to play on the stones when he was a child. And a week after this court case, I was still very heavy. I also realised when I was in the UK, I was still referring to my father in present tense. I had not dealt with the fact that he was gone. I was pushing forward with the brute force of my personality that has been used to describe me before, because this was super important. So I wasn't going to let anybody stop me. I was on a mission. So it didn't matter what sort of pain I was in or how I felt. So we went to Glastonbury. I booked in with this man, right, for me and my girlfriend, Ellie. And I think 2 days before, we were in Glastonbury, and we went to the Chalice Well. So can you imagine how much emotion is inside you?
Yeah.
Father's just died, a couple of months before. The enormity of what I was doing, pushing past any fear, being really buffy, not allowing yourself to be upset. Through this, I never used the word sexual assault for anything that happened to me in my past. from 12 onwards, I now had to.
Yeah.
So this brought up a whole lot of stuff in my past of things that lots of men had done to me that I really could have done without, however, not, right? So that was all in me. So it was my husband was having breakdowns. Our kid was 12. It was heavy emotionally.
Yeah.
And to have all these spirits with me, I literally felt weighty.
Yeah.
Because I'd wake up with them. They were always there. They were there. So a couple of days before, this is after the court case, we were in Glastonbury, and we went to visit the Chalice Well, which is, again, a very ancient kind of spiritual place. It is believed that Jesus visited the Chalice Well and cried. I went to the Chalice Well and tears just poured out of me, and my tears fell into the Chalice Well. And I also realised, I had a reading when I was in Glastonbury. I was lighter because I had left behind some of the spirits who needed to go to the Chalice Well. So basically, I dropped off some of my passengers there because I'd brought them home. And then a few days later, we had this dawn. Imagine, but cold, not raining, dawn inside the stones of Stonehenge. And the healer, he had this staff with a big crystal on it, and he took us through into the stones, not the way that a tourist guide would have taken us, but the way that our ancestors would have come. So we walked into the path and banging a drum with the staff, so very spiritual, where there was only a few people inside the walls, and it was just perfect. The sun's rising, and it's just flooding into us through the stones. It's the most amazingly spiritual place. You touch those stones, even though they say don't touch them. Of course, you've got to touch them. You can feel the energy inside this place. It was absolutely amazing. And this beautiful man, he gave us a shamanic healing, something I'd never had before, and he using the earth and the water and the air and all four parts of the compass, this thing. He blessed us with water from the Chalice Well.
Wow.
The tears, I cried buckets of tears. The people that were inside the walls, they could see that the three of us were doing something very special. They just left and they stood around. They just, they left us to our own devices. It was pouring out of me. With the tears, I also offloaded everybody who was with me, and I brought them home. Generations of my ancestors that had supported me for months that I could never tell anybody about, because people are just kind of, oh yeah, sure,
or
mate.
supported
They're
you
full of shit,
years.
yeah, but I'd never been aware of them.
Yeah,
they made their presence known to me, and we took photos. We're only there for an hour. We took photos at the beginning, and after I cried bucket loads of tears, I also learned forgiveness. I forgave inside the circle. I forgave every man that had ever assaulted me. I forgave everyone who had ever done any wrong to me. I forgave my dad for dying because I was pretty pissed off at him.
Yeah.
All this anger just came flooding out of me, anger that I'd carried in my body for such a long time, decades of unresolved issues and unhealed anger and trauma. My mother was a narcissist as well, so I didn't have a great relationship with her. All of it came out and stayed inside the walls of Stonehenge, and all my spirits, they left me to be in the place that they belonged. And like you said, they've always been with me, and the ones who stayed with me, they didn't let me, I wasn't heavy anymore.
Yeah.
And I have photographs of me. My face looks different. 1 hour later, after this healing, I was so light.
Yeah.
I was so light. My head was like, my heart was like my body. I was kind of like, it's like spiritually my shoulders were slumped, yet I was standing tall. It was the most amazing spiritual healing or experience that I have ever had in my entire life.
Wow.
And my husband, And my best mate, I spoke to them and I sent them the photos, and both of them said, "Wow, Suze, you look so different."
Yeah.
They could see it. It was like my face. I think my face was peaceful.
Yeah.
Which I guess made me look younger. I don't know, but I was changed.
Yeah.
From that moment on. That was the beginning of my healing journey. That was the beginning of my journey to find myself and to be a speaker. Up until then, after people have asked me, did it have any effect on you, Kim? Yeah. I stopped wearing dresses when I was in my early 20s. I was 23 when he assaulted me. I never wore a dress for the next 30 years. Right. I covered my body in baggy clothes the next 30 years. I felt like I moved through life much safer that way.
Yeah.
I covered my body against women, against men. I just felt safer.
Yeah.
And I never dressed in an inappropriate way. I was raised, I wouldn't wear sleeveless things. You'd never see a bra strap showing, never show my cleavage, never. But I became very mouthy after he, had assaulted me. I used the F word very liberally, and I still do to this day. It's very Australian, though. Men, I would just flick them off, don't bother talking to me. But it was more that I hid myself for 30 years. My healing in 2014 allowed me to become the woman that you see here today, to be more balanced, it was my self-esteem. I've always had bucket loads of confidence, but I had low self-esteem and body issue problems, except, there was nothing wrong with my body. There's nothing wrong with what I look like. It was just how I'd been raised,
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I started healing. When I forgave my father. I said I couldn't go to I didn't get to go to the funeral of my father. My mother's a narcissist. I didn't get to go. Another story, but inside Westminster Abbey, I stood there and I lit 2 candles for my dad. And I said goodbye to him there. But the funny thing was I was standing there and I was procrastinating with myself. I was so angry with him for leaving.
Yeah.
And I was like, you don't really deserve this. I'm not going to light a candle for you. And then I was like, I guess the spirits were still with me. Come on. I lit the candle. I forgave my father. And I said goodbye.
Yeah.
And it would have been so much more powerful. He would have loved that I lit candles for him in Westminster Abbey. Loved it. It was so powerful. I had these very powerful moments. Hugely influential on my life.
Yeah.
So it came to 2017, and all of a sudden I was asked to be a beauty queen, and I did something that I would never have done, and it was for a charity, and I went on this huge journey, and I started wearing dresses again, and I found myself again, and I won. Just so you know, at 55, everybody. Mrs. Earth Australia. Thank you.
Done.
And I competed in. I represented Australia in Vegas. I came 3rd in the world. I competed against women who were I could have given birth to, like half of them. I learned how to wear high heel shoes. When they approached me, I was like, I don't have any shoes. I'm a tomboy. I wear shorts and t-shirts. But I pushed myself through. I pushed myself, and I learnt. I built my self-esteem. I like to say I killed my fear of frocks, 1 frock at a time. And that opened the doors to motivational speaking for me, which is where I was supposed to be. And I'm telling you this because I then became a speaker after this, and I talk about all sorts of things: confidence, resilience, healing.
Resilience.
And all those sorts of things. And I've spoken all around the world now, and I've spoken on many TV shows and magazines and interviews and podcasts. I've reached over 50 million people in the last couple of years, which has just been amazing because of this journey. But more than anything, I believe that spirit, the universe, chose me when I was 23 in 1986.
Do you like reading stories about angels, people's experiences where angels have come in and helped them? I'm not talking about, mum or dad or my friend was just an angel. I'm talking about the etheric angels or the hands of God. Do you have a story like that? Would you like to share your story with us? I'm looking for stories primarily out of Australia and out of New Zealand. I love reading these stories, and I have for over 40 years. And I found that they're all the UK stories or US stories, and there's nothing wrong with them. But come on, Australia and New Zealand, we need our own stories. We've got hundreds of people out there, thousands, that have had that experience. I just want to quickly share with two that I've had personally. One was in Australia. My son was 10 months old. He's now coming up to 50, and he was having croup. And I got out of bed to go and see him. His cot was at the end of the bed. And as I got out of bed, I looked out that way, and I saw this boy and girl at the end of his little portable bassinet looking over him, and we had a conversation, and he was fine after that. And another one was years ago in New Zealand. I was running late for something. The weather had been wet, and I skidded on the road, and instead of driving, I went sideways, and I was heading towards a rock wall. It was a hill, and all of a sudden I was crying, I was praying for help, and the car was lifted up and put back straight on the road. And without that hands of God, I would have died that day. I'm absolutely sure of it. These are just two stories that I've got. Would you like to see your story in print? Now, we are requiring Australian and New Zealand stories because we're amazing and we've got fantastic stories. If you would like to know more about it, go to my landing page. This video will be on the landing page, and also it'll be on other people's Facebook pages. Write me your story. The link to contact me will be on the landing page if you get there, but it's also on the oldgirlspiritualstuff.com, and you can go to the landing page there, or you can contact me at angel stories for the number 4 angel stories for all 25 at gmail.com. I'm Barbara Hayward, and I would dearly love to read your stories, be uplifted, bring goodness back into the world, get your stories into print, as I'm going to be putting my story into print. Come and join me. Let's share goodness into the world. Until I catch your email, you have a good day. Thank you so much, Suzi. And I am so pleased that you were given the gift of Stonehenge and the gift of that awakening at that time. And congratulations on your new documentary.
Thank you, Barb.
And just go with so much love. And out there, out of darkness always comes goodness. Always. And our spiritual journey is what keeps us together. It's the prime part of who we are. And we need to recognize that we are not alone, that we have magnitudes of spirit, of angels, of everything around us. And we are never alone. Even in the darkest of times, whether we see our people in spirit or we know they're there, we are never alone. And when we walk hard paths, like you did, Suzi, and so many of us walk hard paths, and that's what makes our character, that's what makes us so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all your experiences with us today. And until next time, stay rooted in your light, and don't forget to breathe.
Thank you, Barb. Thanks, everyone.